Joining me every Wednesday is National Senator Matt Canavan, the former Resources Minister. Matt Canavan, always great to see you. Look, I want to get to the grilling that a Senate committee today gave to Qantas, but Noel Pearson's speech today, your reaction?
Well, Noel here has worn more masks than you see at Carnival throughout this debate. He was trying to switch into nice Noel again today with talk of love and peace and listening and a voice. And it seems to me, though, that we really saw the real Noel back when The Voice was actually leading the polls. When The Voice was leading the polls 6 months or so ago, it was Noel Pearson out there saying that Jacinta Price had been caught in a redneck vortex, insulting even Julian Leeser, someone who supported The Voice. He insulted him too. And it was a real hectoring, lecturing tone. And he sort of had been wrapped over the knuckles for that. And now that The Voice is behind the polls, he all wants to be nice and cuddly and love and peace. And I just don't think people are buying this anymore, Andrew. The examples that you've just run through, they're kind of trite. No one can really understand exactly what this voice will do. I mean, how in practice will The Voice help Aboriginal Australians with rheumatic heart disease? Noel doesn't really spell that out today, and neither can any of these advocates do it for any practical issue. And there are so many practical problems in Aboriginal Australia, as you know. Warren Entsch, he's a very passionate supporter of Indigenous affairs issues. So many practical problems. We should put our efforts into solving those, as we have been. They're hard, they're difficult, but I don't think more politicians in Canberra are going to solve any of them.
No, I think behind the, we've got to have love, 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 all you need is love, is, as I just showed, a little bit of spite still creeps into his rhetoric. But Matt, we had a Senate committee today getting stuck into the chairman and the new head of Qantas. The chairman, Richard Goyder, was blasted for all the recent failings of Qantas, like selling seats on cancelled flights and illegally sacking 1,700 workers. But he said today he wasn't going to resign. Here he is.
I've had meetings with our major shareholders 2 weeks ago, and they're very strongly supportive of me staying. And I would also argue that my history in business has been one of high ethics, high looking to create value for all our stakeholders. I've navigated a company through the global financial crisis, chaired Qantas through the most existential crisis we've ever had as an airline. And right now, the major shareholders on the board feel that I'm the best person to chair the board to navigate us through the current situation we've got.
Fair enough answer. I mean, if the shareholders want him to stay, why should politicians demand he go?
Well, look, Andrew, I'm not demanding he go. As you say, it's up to shareholders. In saying that, it seems to me to be a little bit of a lack of accountability there, especially in regards to probably the most egregious thing Qantas has done or exposed to allegedly be done around charging people for flights that have also cancelled. So while presiding over the global financial crisis, the COVID pandemic, Mr. Goyder was also chairman when that behaviour seems to have happened at Qantas, and he hasn't given a good explanation about what he was doing or why he was chairing that committee and seemingly oversighted this behaviour. In saying all that, look, as you say, ultimately this is a matter for Qantas shareholders, and you can't really begrudge Qantas from wanting to maximise its profits, wanting to keep out competitors. That's what companies are going to do. Really, the blame here should be squarely put at the feet of Anthony Albanese and his government. They are the ones that seem to have been co-accomplices here in Qantas's efforts to keep a competition from the airline market, to keep prices up higher than they otherwise need to be. It's really the government that should be on the hook here for the accountability of why we're paying so much for airline prices, why prices keep going up for everything. The government just doesn't seem focused on inflation right now. It's all it can talk about is The Voice. And I think people are very frustrated about that.
I totally agree with you. Matt, I totally agree with you. So Qantas doesn't want competition. Big deal. I mean, what company in the capitalist society would welcome more and more competition? The key is, as you say, the government. And here I thought the committee today really got to the nitty-gritty here when they were asking about the Albanese government banning Qatar Airways from putting on extra flights, which would have cut international fares, cut Qantas's profits too. Qantas said they hadn't contacted the Prime Minister or any ministers about this, not the chairman, not anyone from the board. But I tell you what, the Qatar bosses earlier told the committee they were not happy with this ban. They blamed the government, and they called out the government for keeping them in the dark. Here they are.
It was shocking for us to get the decision through the media, and it was more shocking that we received the letter later, which does not describe why.
We don't think this decision fully takes into account the interests of Australians heading abroad, who are today paying too much for their airfares.
And Matt, we also had Turkish Airways saying before them they'd put in an application for extra flights for them as well. 45 days later, 46 probably now, 47, they're still waiting for a response. What's going on? Is this a scandal or a stuff-up?
Well, I think it is a scandal because what's scandalous is how much Australians are having to put out their pockets for basic necessities right now. Every time you go to the petrol pump, it puts a big dent in your wallet. Then you've got to pay your mortgage, of course. Interest rates are up. And of course, in the airline market, we're paying through the roof. All of these things are costing Australians massive amounts of money. And yet the only time that Anthony Albanese seemed to take an interest in Qantas in the past few months was when they were campaigning or announcing that they would campaign for the yes case of The Voice. And so the Prime Minister seems totally obsessed by this issue of The Voice, to the extent that he'll hold a joint press conference with perhaps the most hated businessman in the country, Alan Joyce, but do nothing to actually say to Alan, presumably at that press conference, say, hey, mate, how can you help us get prices down for Australians? People are struggling. People are struggling to be able to stay in their homes right now. And the government doesn't seem to have any plan to deal with this, or not even talking about it. I mean, inflation has ticked up again today, and that might mean interest rates have to go up again. The government is spending like a drunken sailor in their budget, and it's like they think that autopilot is enough here for this economy. Someone has got to take control of this and start to provide some relief and help to Australian families.
Well, I don't think Anthony Albanese's ever really evinced much interest for the economy, and I think it's starting to show. Matt Canavan, thank you so much indeed for your time.